Hey everybody, how are you doing? Welcome back to my lovely recording studio here, which is my spare bedroom. And I thought that I would take this opportunity to answer some of the questions that I've received in the comments about how much money you can make if you decide to teach in China. And that could be not just English, but any subject. I'm going to look at some scenarios here. I put together a spreadsheet, and I just want to, before I get into it, there's a few variables and caveats that I need to put in here before I start talking about the numbers. This type of topic is very vague. So much depends on things like location. It's like if you said to somebody, how much money can I make in IT or as a nurse or something like that? Well, if you're asking somebody who lives in San Francisco versus somebody who lives in, I don't know, Wisconsin or something like that, the numbers are going to be very, very different. I'm focusing strictly on international school, K through 12 type school jobs. This is the spreadsheet that I put together to give you some examples as you look at this. This is just for income. I wanted to give a good spread of options here. So the first one in green is your average international job. That is very vague, but I'm just looking at it like all the times that I've perused recruiter postings or websites and things like that. As I put all that information in my head, shake it around and come out with a general number, I would say that your average international job for your average teacher with requisite skills and qualifications, you'd be somewhere around that in the low 20s. Now, that would be like if you're familiar with Korea and somebody said to you, well, how much money can I make teaching at a hagwon? Well, that's also a tough question, but if you're familiar with it, you can kind of say, well, it's in the vicinity of 2.1 to 2.3 million Korean won per month, right? So I think that would be a safe number. It's going to give a good ballpark. Some are going to be higher, maybe some are a little bit lower, but in the center mass is going to be like that. And that's what this green average column is for. After that, the next three, Ningbo, Shanghai, Beijing, those I took from a recruiter posting on Facebook. No different than if you're looking at jobs for Korea or whatever, and you see a recruiter that just posts like 30 different jobs and you have to peruse through them. I looked for specifically Shanghai, Beijing, because those are two of the big locations that foreigners tend to gravitate to. And then I looked for another higher or the highest paying jobs on that posting, which I saw last night. And it happened to be Ningbo. Ningbo is south of Shanghai. It goes Shanghai, Hangzhou, Ningbo. And so that's how I came across these three cities. Those numbers happen to be based on that, but I think it's in the ballpark. Now the last column is Dongguan, which is the city that I live in, and these numbers are based on the highest numbers that I have heard thrown around in the foreigner community within this city. Like I said, it's between Shenzhen and Guangzhou. Maybe I didn't say that, but I've said it many times in the past. And Huawei company is moving rapidly into Dongguan because it's an undeveloped, rough city, and so it's inexpensive. But these are the numbers that I've heard of, so we're going to go with that to give you that extreme other side. You've got everything from average to the main places that people would like to go to, all the way to an example of an area that I can speak intimately to and with some of the highest numbers that I've heard. I think that'll give you a good cross section. Okay, now moving over to the expense tab. For these numbers, the majority of them I took information from Numbeo, which is a cost of living website. I trust that it's in the ballpark. If you live in Shanghai or Beijing or something like that, I'm sure you'll correct me, but everybody has a different way of spending their money. Some people like to crank their AC. Other people are very frugal and look at the bottom line every month. I'm not that type of person. Then for Dongguan, these are my actual expense numbers. And so I try to give you a good snapshot of what I pay for expenses, although it does change to a certain degree each month. And what we're looking at here is the cost of an apartment. Cost of apartment is a tough one in a place like Shanghai and Beijing, but what I did is I went to a site called China Flat, I think it is. I did a search for all of the one-bedroom apartments that are between, say, 50 and 100 square feet. I just perused real quickly. I jumbled the numbers up around in my head. I said, you know what? It feels like the ballpark is around 8 to 10,000 RMB a month. So I'm going to say around 9,000 RMB. I don't know anything about the locations, the different sections of the city. Some are obviously going to be more expensive than others. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to go ahead and say it's about 9,000 RMB a month. Just so you know, 1,000 RMB is the equivalent to about 150 US dollars. So in Ningbo, where we saw that strong salary, it's actually a low cost of living city, it sounds. So from Ningbo, I took all of these numbers, including the apartment cost, because I couldn't find any data on it on the apartment. So I just went with what Ningbo said. And then I gave similar numbers to the average city. And then for Dongguan, again, these are my numbers. Internet management fees to your apartment, water, electric, gas, and then food, transport, buying stuff, things like that. Many of these international schools will feed you. I get 3 meals a day offered to me. I often only eat breakfast and lunch there because I just kind of want to go home at the end of the day. So I would say rough lower side numbers maybe for some people. These numbers here. 2,000 is about $300 a month. 3,000 is $450 a month. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think that's a good amount of going out for your own food, taking a taxi or a Didi, wherever you want to, a few times a month. I think that's within striking distance there. And then I threw in another row called other, and that would be like, oh, I had to have some dental work done, or I got really sick, or I injured my elbow, or I had to make an emergency run somewhere, or whatever it might be. I just threw in an extra 500 to 1,000 RMB. That's about 80 to 150 US dollars, 75 to 150 US dollars. All right, here we are at the aggregate page. I know you're already looking down at the bottom line, so I'm not going to really get into it. Everything else is just carried over from the other two tabs. Your income minus expenses down here, row 17, is going to look something like this with these types of cities. The current exchange rate for RMB, yuan to US dollars is 0.152308. That's just a rough estimate. And so for US dollars, you're going to come out to these numbers here. Now, you and I both know you budget your money and you never end up saving more. If you do, God bless you, you have a special gift of stewardship. But in my case, it's always lower. And I would say you just lose track of time over the course of 30 days. And again, rough estimate, I would say you can expect to be about $200 to $400 lower per month than what you're really expecting. You're just going to say, where did that money go? I don't know what I did. So from the left, average school, I think you can expect to save around $2,000 to $2,400 a month if you're living just a regular basic lifestyle. If you're going out partying and stuff like that and spending money on the clothes and you're buying all this stuff, well, that's going to go down. A city like Ningbo with a high salary of 30,000 RMB, low expenses, you can save in the low threes up to the mid threes, mid to high threes here. So I would say $3,400 to $3,700 a month. That's a substantial amount. Shanghai, Beijing, you're going there for the experience. Shanghai is an incredible city. If I could do it, I would, if I could figure out a way to do it and still save money how I am now, I would do it. It's an incredible city. You're going to be looking at high teens, maybe the low twos, saving every month on what I think is your general international job pay. Some jobs are going to be higher, some will be lower, but I think this is a good cross section. Beijing, same thing. You're looking at about $200 to $2,400 a month. Dongguan, check it out one time. If you score a job like this one that I've heard of, at the end of the month with my expenses and whatnot, you could be wiring home each month somewhere between $4,000 and $4,500. Now, if you have a bonus on top of that, then that bonus spread out over, it's usually say 1 month. So that bonus spread out over the course of 12 months is going to add, say, another three to $400 a month on top of that you're going to be wiring home. You're closing in on the $5,000 mark per month that you could save. If you have been fortunate and blessed enough to land a job that pays that much, look, it wouldn't be a forever thing. Maybe it's high stress. Here's the rub. Here's the trade-off. You go to Shanghai and Beijing because it's Shanghai and Beijing. They're awesome places to live, right? Those big cities. Seoul, Tokyo, wherever. New York, you're going to pay. The other places, look, Dongguan, where I live, nobody wants to come here. And if you were to come visit here, there's like one location that anyone would try to brag about and say, hey, look at these buildings here. We got a mall, and it's a nice mall. And there is. There are buds blooming now because Huawei's moving into town. And I would say in the next 5 to 7 years, this would be a decently livable place. Although maybe some of the long-term expats that have been here for several years would say differently. But for me, it's a rough place to make home and to see as a long-term thing. So you look at it and you say, well, for X amount of time, I can suck it up. I'm going to save some money and then I'm going to bounce. And so that's what you're looking at for these types of situations. If you're looking for the long-term quality of life, options for activities, meeting people, large foreigner community, dating, things like that, obviously you're going to go to places like Shanghai, Beijing, and those big cities. Guangzhou, Shenzhen. Shenzhen's great because you're right across the border from Hong Kong. So you're gonna make a decent salary, but your expenses are going to be much higher. I hope this was helpful to some of you who are thinking about it, or if you're just kind of a window shopper, a silent shopper. That's what you can expect to make. As you can see, if you're in Dongguan doing that, you could save yourself $50,000 a year. So China is the place if you want to save money. Teaching, I don't think there's any place that rivals China right now. But you'd have to really want to come and live in China. And there's a lot of great things about it here. You just have to settle in. Hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. If I've been way off on the numbers, also let me know. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.